gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any materials produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Paranormal Buzz Radio is proud to present Girls vs. Ghosts, The Mind's Eye with Stephanie Hutnick, live only on Spreaker. Join us in our live interactive chat by going to Spreaker.com or download the free Spreaker app for all devices. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Stephanie Hutnick.
Welcome to the show.
Well, hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. I hope everyone's had a great week. Glad you're all here with me now for another episode of The Mind's Eye. And tonight I'm excited to welcome my guest, Mr. Tim Shaw. Hello, Tim.
Hey, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me on tonight. I've kind of, I'm a little excited. I feel like a little schoolgirl, all just a quiver.
I love it. Perfect. We'll run with that. So, Tim, I have not had the pleasure of meeting you in person yet, and I'm sure someday our paths will cross. But I'm really excited to have you on and chat about your experience and all these different things you do. And I follow you on Facebook, and I'm obsessed with your black mirrors. And I'm always I love seeing your collection when you get a new item, and just everything that you do is exciting to me. So I can't ready to dive into all of it.
Well, listen, first of all, you got to aim higher, because if I'm exciting, we're all in trouble, believe me. And a lot of the stuff that I get by default. A lot of people want to get rid of it, and so they're afraid to throw the stuff out. So I get it, and I just like to keep busy. I'm at that age where if I'm not busy, I'm bored, and so I'm very, very busy. I try to always just keep abreast of new developments, new technology, and then also I like hanging out with some of my friends and drummers, and some of my friends up in Canada, with the voodoo culture and people in the craft and Santeria, and I just like to make sure that I have my fingers dipped in a little bit in quite a few cauldrons, so to say.
Yeah, that's okay. That's great. So I'm going to try not to sidetrack too much, because I tend to do that, Tim, just so you know. But
that's fine. That's fine.
I'm a huge music fan. You mentioned drums. I actually work at a music school for kids down here in Savannah, and so I love that. And then, through our conversation, you mentioned voodoo and Santeria. So I have a question for you at some point in this regarding something that recently happened here.
Sure.
So Tim, you are a psychic medium, an author, an investigator. You collect haunted items, like you just mentioned. Sometimes things people just don't want to throw away because they may be terrified, or things that you get on your own. I want everybody to visit your website, and we'll repeat this at the end, but it's timothytshaw.com. And I was reading your bio, and I thought it was really cool that growing up you had, was it relatives involved with Lilydale?
Oh, yeah. I can trace spiritualism back in my family through the 1880s. So, I mean, as a kid, we used to go visit relatives in Lilydale, and I used to just think it was the greatest thing in the world. And, well, my parents, I think they got some complaints from some people out there because my friends and my relatives and my, cousins and that would be running into tourists down there with our bicycles, and they'd be running off docks with them and going into the lake and causing general havoc. So right around 1970, so really when I was about right around 1972, when I was 9 or 10 years old, they enrolled me in Lyceum, which is the spiritualist Sunday school down there. And I guess kind of the rest is kind of history. I went to a parochial Catholic school for 8 years, and then during the summer I'd be down there. So that actually stuck. So, and I just thought it was fascinating. I just thought it was really just something that was out of the ordinary, and a lot of the people, back in my hometown really, they were all afraid of it. And of course, had the movie The Exorcist had just come out, and everybody was afraid of the devil and everything. So I just thought what we were doing was fun.
Yeah. Interesting, intriguing, fun. And it's funny, I think we become desensitized to evil and the devil a little bit, at least in this field, maybe in general a little bit. But so what age did you realize you were gifted then?
Right from the beginning. The earliest.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I was little. I maybe 8 years old. I saw a sign at my uncle's house, this metal beware of dog sign. And I saw myself falling into it and cutting my knee open and bleeding all over the place. And within 5 minutes, it happened. It happened. And I always remember that. And I think that was my earliest recollection of anything that would have been considered, paranormal. It's hard for me to see paranormal or supernatural, because I take the spiritualist route and say that everything is normal. There's nothing paranormal. There's nothing supernatural. Everything is natural. Science just hasn't caught up with it yet. So I'm one of those guys that everything that happens to me is more normal. That's why I really don't freak out, when we start looking, and start working with lower entities and lower energies and that sort of thing, because it's just sort of, it's there, and it's just a natural thing. Right.
I was going to ask you how it started. So it's kind of like a premonition almost.
Correct. I think everybody, I took training with Tom Brown Jr. He's the American tracker. And he had a grandfather that taught him. He was an Apache elder. And I had taken a weekend class with him up at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, and about natural awareness. And one of the things that stuck with his philosophy that really kind of struck home with me was that when we were in that hunter-gatherer stage, we needed something to survive, and we had to be better than the next nomadic tribe that was out there. So we used a natural-born sixth sense. And everybody says man doesn't have instinct, but I disagree with it. I believe this is something that we all have, and we used it to survive. Yeah, and it's just like muscle memory. As we started living behind walls, and we didn't need all that extra protection, and we knew where food was coming from, you didn't need that. So only your priests and that would actually hold this stuff and have this stuff. The problem is that people don't get that this is so natural. I believe that we all have it. I believe everybody has it, and all we have to do is just awaken it somehow. Sometimes it's a crisis that will awaken it. Other times it's just resurrecting it through muscle memory. And that to me is all like these psychic classes and that sort of thing teach you. It's just resurrecting something we already have.
Well, you mentioned the instinct thing, and I agree with you. I just think that everything's become so easy, and everything's available at our fingertips that you just don't realize it's still there. It always is. It's not going to go away. But I guess in the most simple way I can explain it is, you ever go home from work and you take the same way every single time, but for some reason, that one Tuesday you're like, I'm going to go a different way. Then you get home and you see the news, and there was this huge accident or something. I mean, why do you think you decided to go the other way that day? I mean,
Exactly. This is what people don't understand. Everybody thinks, see, my biggest complaint with a lot of the paranormal and metaphysical community is because they feel that what this is they call it a gift. And I can't even fathom calling it a gift because sometimes it can be a curse. So I kind of I equalize it out by saying it's ability. And everybody has it. It's just if you want to develop it or not. And people don't get that. People don't get that anybody can do this. You know, a lot of people come up to me, and when I used to teach a lot of mediumship and psychic development classes, everybody'd go, well, I don't know if I can do it. Yes, you can do it. It's up to me as a teacher to find out what you're good at. Everybody's good at something, whether it's clairsentient, clairvoyant, you know, whatever. And once you start to develop that, and you bring it up to a certain level, then the instructor should be instituting different types of modalities, you know, to help you build it and get stronger. And once you realize that this is nothing special, nobody that does this is special. And I mean, I know some great psychics and mediums. I mean, I really do. And each one of them say, listen, it's nothing. This is what I do is nothing. What I admire is a person that can fix my brakes on a car. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, but to me, that's amazing. You know what's amazing to me? Somebody that can teach me Photoshop. I am not of that age. The ability is nothing. It's just something that it's there, and I've learned how to turn it on and kind of turn it off as the way I work. And you know, when I do readings, I'm very, very sure of what's going on in my head and what's coming out of my mouth, but it really isn't anything special. And that's why I really try to emphasize that with people. The more that you think that something is special, the more, and we all need ego in order to do this type of work, because the ego is what makes us relatable, and we're able to go and have that confidence to do it. But if you let the ego get out of hand, well, then all of a sudden you think you're something special. The more special you think you are, the less you really are. You have to remember that. And you know, and spirit is like the big equalizer. Every time my ego gets out of hand, man, I get a kick in the pants that you can't believe. And I go, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm stupid. I did something, you know, or I thought a different way or whatever. Right. And that's the way it works. Everything works in balance.
I'm going to say something that it might sound wrong, and I don't mean anything wrong by it. It's not about you, Tim. And then actually I have a question for you, too. But hi, Exie, by the way. I love Exie.
Hi, Exie. I love Exie.
Okay, so when, you know, we don't want ego to get out of hand. And then we all know, even though and I agree, we're all gifted, or not gifted, I agree we all have abilities. Let me rephrase. But how do you feel about when you go to an event or a workshop, or I have a hard time. I do feel we should be compensated for our time and energy doing readings and different things like that.
Oh, I have no problem with that. My thing is that sometimes people will overcharge, and it's whatever the market can bear. I understand that, but you should. You know what? The way I feel is this: I never overcharge, or I never charge for the ability. I charge for my time, and that people have to realize when I go to an event. 9 out of 10 times, it's costing me out of pocket to drive there, to get a hotel room, whatever. A lot of people. Exactly. A lot of people are under the misconception that, you know, I'm one of those guys that gets full boat everywhere I go, and that's not the truth at all. I'm not that popular of a person, but it's you have to be able to go, and you have to recoup something every year in order to do what we're doing. And then also, I mean, I constantly take classes. I constantly go to circles, meditation circles, development circles on, and constantly learn. That takes money too. So I'm retired now, so I have an income coming in, and I can tell you right now that almost 80 to 90% of what I make as a medium, which is not a lot because I'm not out there doing a lot of reading or gallery work. At this time of the year, yes, but for the rest of the year, maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months, I'll put a shingle out and do something. Most of that money goes right back into my own education in this field. And I go to different places. Well, you have to. You really do. And and the other thing is that, people. You mentioned black mirrors, and I'll make black mirrors up, and I make different tools of divination up. And I'll be totally honest with you. I give away half of that stuff. I never charge. Somebody admires it. Here, take it. Here, take it. Because this way, I know that they're getting a quality piece. And if I feel that person really, really wants to learn or has learned and really wants to work with something, take it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to, I don't need the money to put food on my table. And I'll be honest with you. Well, no, it's not kind. It's just, I just feel that's the way. See, it's whatever the market can bear and whatever you feel is proper. I followed a lot of the Reiki tenets, and let's face it, sometimes people overpay for things, but is it really overpaying, or is it what you should pay for it, or what you can afford to pay for it? And that's the way I feel about it. And also, it's market, buyer beware. What are you looking for? I'm as cheap as they come. I won't lie to you, man. I buy clothes at like Goodwill. That's just the way I am. But my thing is this: I don't believe, and that's the way I was brought up. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a kid, and we were in Lilydale like Friday, Saturday nights, we were not allowed to sit on the porch of the Maplewood Hotel down there. And the Maplewood Hotel it's an old Victorian hotel, and you couldn't sit on the porch because that was where the registered mediums of Lilydale and visiting mediums would come and sit, and they would talk. And one night, and I got an education through that was like unbelievable, because they really got down and dirty, man, sometimes when they were talking about messages and how they get stuff and what they see. And this old guy looked at me one day, and I'm sitting there, and the old guy looked at me with this walrus mustache, and he looked at me and he said, "You know what, boy?" He says, "What you're learning here is to be a great addition to your life, but it's not to be your life," which means go out there, get a job, and don't use this to like put food on your table. What you're supposed to be doing is going out there and being, and minister and being of service, which is what the spiritualist tenets are. The dogma is to be of service of those on this side as well as the other side of the veil. And it's supposed to be something that you go and you can help people with. And that's the way I think of it. I do. But on the flip side, I think like this: whatever you want to charge, that's fine. I've gone to different shows, like conferences, and people come up to me and go, "You're charging way too little." And I look at them, I said, "No, I'm charging just right. It's what I'm in charge of my life. Who wrote the rules of this conference? No one did. Right. I'm writing the rules for myself. So if somebody else wants to go and charge more money, go ahead. And you know what? People can go, and it doesn't bother me. And if nobody comes to me for a reading, it doesn't bother me. I sit there and I have a good time, and I talk to people. And that's just the way I look at things. I love that. It's kind of, it's a little simplistic, I guess. And you know what? I'll never get rich doing it. But then I don't feel that Spirit ever wanted me to be, rich or famous or whatever. I'm just me, and I think Spirit is happy that I'm sort of just this way.
There's nothing wrong with that. And XD, Shay, myself, everyone in chat can agree that's some really great advice and what was said to you, and so true, so true.
We have to, and again, you know what I love? There's nothing I love more than serving a church. I'm gonna charge a church. No, sometimes they'll give you an honorarium, sometimes not. I don't want anything. As a matter of fact, I got an honorarium from a church, and I said, "Put it back in your coffers." And they looked at me like I was like, you had three eyes. And I said, "No, put it back in your coffers. You guys need it more than me." I did an event recently at the Hinsdale House. for with Tim Malley for paw grafts to go and benefit I believe I'm not sure if it was a rescue or a animal support group, but you do that. And I always try to teach my students, listen, guys, everything has to be within balance. If you want to be able to live and do this work correctly and live a decent life, stay in balance. Give some stuff back. Take some stuff. Somebody calls me up and needs a prize basket, basket raffles or whatever. I've always got books here that I've written I give to them or something around the house that something that I have. I don't mind doing that. And the reason I don't mind doing that because it's all part of giving back. And if you don't give back and you only take, again, you go out of balance. And if you want to be able to live a decent life, and when this ride is over, and your energy is out there in the ethers, which way do you want to do? Do you want to have to come back? Do you want to, repeat? Do you want to go on a little bit? Do you want to end it right there and be one with everything? That's the way it's the only way that I can figure out how to do it. Give back if you can. It's not going to hurt you. If you need the money, that's one thing. But if you don't need the money, use it for what you need, but give back some way. Because too many people in this society, just take. They take and they take and they take. And I don't do that. It's even like the production companies. You know what? I know a lot of these production companies have buku bucks. Whenever I get contacted, well, what's your fee? It's like, well, whatever you want to pay me. I don't really care. And I used to drive my old agent up the wall. He used to get crazy with that. And I said, it's whatever people want to pay me. I don't care. If they don't want to pay me anything, I'm happy that way too, because it's an experience, and that's what people don't understand. And I mean, even when it comes to volunteer, being a volunteer, I'm a big proponent of people doing something that they enjoy, that they can volunteer at and they can give back. And I could be making decent money at this little lockboard cable TV that I volunteer at, but I don't want to make money. I was offered a job there. I don't want the job. I love going in there. I produce and work on 4 different little public access TV shows. They're all not for profits. I love that. I'm giving something back, and it doesn't even feel like I'm giving something back. I'm learning, and I'm helping some people get their message out. And that to me is more than enough. So I always tell people, try to give something back. Try to volunteer someplace. Just try to give something back into the ethers. Make it a little bit better. These grand gestures that everybody thinks that we're supposed to be doing, you don't need grand gestures. You don't need that stuff. If it comes down to opening a door for a little old lady walking into a bank, that's a grand gesture. And that's what people don't get. The littlest thing can be the best thing.
Tim Shaw, you are a breath of fresh air.
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of people like me out there. There really is. There's a lot of people that believe that.
I know that there is, but I guess I'm hearing this at a time I really needed to.
Well, but that's the way it works. You know that yourself. But I mean, the big thing is that people, we sometimes right now live in a take society, and that's not what I do. That's not the way I'm put together. I've never been like that. And I guess I can thank my parents and my ancestors down in the Dale and that to be like that. I'm just not that orientated. I have enough spirit. It's sort of like a Baptist principle. If you have enough and if you survive, then you're doing really great. You're doing great. And I don't have to have shows of, I don't have to have the best car. I don't have the best clothes. Doesn't matter. I get a chance to go out there. Whoever thought a kid from Buffalo would be able to, like myself, be able to get out there and shake hands with people and meet some really cool people that I never thought I'd ever meet in a million years and go on these fantastic adventures. I mean, that's every day is like, for me, it's like an adventure. And especially when I'm traveling and I'm going to the different, conferences,
it's so fun.
Those are totally adventures. That's great. Whoever thought I'd ever get a chance to do that stuff? That's what blows my mind. And that's what spirit takes care of me. And that's just, and if spirit doesn't, if spirit wants me to stop tomorrow and the whole thing ends tomorrow, the whole sideshow merry-go-round that I'm doing, ends tomorrow, I can be happy and say, I had a great run. I can be fulfilled. And, I'll just go on to find a new adventure somewhere else. That's just the way my philosophy.
Exactly. No, I love it. And you're right. I think one of my favorite things, other than helping people, is going to these conventions and Paracons and meeting everybody, learning from everybody, the drive there, the drive home. It really is an adventure. It's a grand adventure.
It's crazy. It's just a crazy adventure.
It is.
Well, I just heard a knock. Sorry, I just heard a knock off my. I just jumped a little bit. I have a wooden trunk up here in my office / guest bedroom. So if anybody ever stays at my house, they know what they're in for. And I have Ouija boards in there, my old Ouija boards. And I just heard a bang come out of there, so I just jumped. So I think somebody's like saying, "Hey, okay, that's good. Go on, let her talk."
Yeah. Or they're just agreeing
that was funny. That was funny. Every so often I get one of those. That was neat.
Oh, that's awesome. So I wanted to ask you, so you're a paranormal investigator too, aside from, the ability aspect of it. And I've always had this weird draw to Hinsdale House. And you mentioned you just did the Photographs event.
Right.
But I know you've done a lot of other work with Hinsdale. What's your thoughts on Hinsdale overall and the activity there?
The Hinsdale is an interesting location. I believe it's an overlapping location where there's so many levels of things going on. And my biggest thing is trying to figure out what powers it. And I first went up there in 2011. They were going to tear the place down. So that was when I first was I had read as back in the 70s, they used to have articles in the newspaper about it. So I was kind of familiar.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. It wasn't a hidden secret. And I had always wanted to go up there, but I never got around to it. So when it was abandoned and I had heard through the grapevine that they were going to tear it down. We got permission, my friend Joe Piari and I got permission to go up there, and we did. And our whole purpose was to photograph it and videotape everything so that if it did go, a piece of Western New York mythology wouldn't be lost. Because in our modern society, we like to, we look at things and say, oh, that's old and dilapidated. We're just going to bulldoze it and make a parking lot out of it or whatever.
And that's so important. I love that.
So we went up there to do that. We went up there to kind of save it. And it was crazy. And there was, it started off outside. We heard somebody say hello to us at different times. We were in the house. And the house to me is always, there's one room I don't like, but the rest of the house is very comfortable to me. And we had a white silk flower appear in one of the bedrooms, the bedroom on the first floor, after we had gone and done the photographic survey of it. And I think the craziest thing was I looked down the stairs and I saw a girl standing there looking up at me, hanging on a folding door. And I'm like looking at her, and she's looking at me, and she's got a little smile. And I just thought it was like a local kid. That's a teenager, a local kid. And I blinked my eyes, and she was there for about 10, 12 seconds. And I forget if Joe made a noise or whatever, and I just kind of glanced off and looked down, she's gone. And then I realized, it was like November, December, and we're in Gore-Tex. And there's no heat, no electricity in this house, and she's got like a polyester shirt on. And I ran down those stairs so quick and out the door, and there's just no way. There's absolutely no way she could have gotten away from me. No way. I would have seen her someplace. And when I got a hold, and I had interviewed Clara Miller, Clara Dandy at the time when she lived in the house back in the 70s. And I emailed her and I said, Clara, on the off chance, maybe I know you used to see a girl in the house. And I described her this girl, and she wrote back to me a couple weeks later. And she says, you gave me a start. It sounds like my daughter, Laura. And Laura committed suicide a number of years after they had left the house and they went to the West Coast. I mean, we're talking a number of years, but other witnesses that I had interviewed always said, and even Clara kind of verified it. They all said if anything ever happened to her, she always wanted to go back to that house. And Father Alphonsus Trabolt, who had done a mass in the house and actually did a service of lesser exorcism or deliverance on the house, he really felt that she was the catalyst behind the haunting. The only problem is that haunting has gone on in different degrees. I've interviewed 3 people that lived in that house after they did, and there's always been something else, something going on in the house.
Differences.
Yeah, and John Zaffis, who really is, to me, is one of the foremost just unbelievable people you ever want to meet, and I really have so much respect for Johnny, and I'm so happy I can call him a friend. He told me, you've got to look for the power source. And I did. And I looked for the power source, and I met some dowsers, and they said 2 negative ley lines crossed directly underneath the house. And I thought, okay. And then there's water underneath, there's water, underground water. There's geologically, it can hold electricity. There's some quartz and there's granite up there. And a lot of people talk about Native American influence. I'm not so keen on that because of the fact that I know a lot of Native Americans who are, practicing mystics, last of the wisdom keepers and so forth. And they don't seem to feel that they feel that there's something out there, but they don't feel that it's a Native American influence. It's more white. And I have to go and I have to agree with them. So we don't really
about that because it is, even on TV shows, they usually will say that there's some sort of influence on the hauntings by something Native American. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Well, I'm a firm believer that once a body's consecrated in the ground, if you move it or whatever without it being properly, the proper steps go through, I think that can go and cause a little bit of problem. I'm not quite sure, but I did hear that there may be a white burial on the other side of the pond where the barn used to be. It may have been one of the people that the great-great-grandmother or great-great-great-grandmother of the McMahon family was buried there. And if that's the case, well, then that would be more plausible than the destruction of a Native American ossuary or a burial mound. So, and I don't see any evidence of true burial mounds right in that area. Off a little bit further, you have 3,000 to 5,000 year old mounds that are a little bit further up on the hill and off to the side on private property. But at that point, I haven't really seen anything to indicate that. And the reason I know this is because I have a lot of friends who do flint napping, which is they recreate stone tools, Native American stone tools. And they are very, very into archaeology and anthropology. And I know some people that have been up there that have really walked the grounds. And so they were like, no, I don't really see anything up there that would really indicate it. Although I do know that they did find some stone arrow points up there too. So, but I mean, that could just be a temporal hunting camp. So you don't know. I believe one of the larger villages and towns was actually a little bit further down towards Olean on these flats. So yeah, but I mean, that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that you in your little band, your little paranormal band, you gotta like really. And I'm blessed because I talk to if I could I talk to the wall if nobody's around, so I talk to everybody. And through me talking to people, I'm able to go and I found flint nappers. And through the flint nappers, I found archaeologists and I found anthropologists. I have a personal friend who's an exorcist, and he's also a mental health professional. I mean, these are, and again, through Native American studies, I was able to go and connect through a good friend of mine who's he's a Tuscarora. And he's one of the last of the wisdom keepers. So you were able to go and in the little band that I work with, you're ready for almost all contingents.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's the young girl that may not be the one who committed suicide going back to the home. You have ley lines, all these other natural resources that could be causing activity or holding that energy there. I've heard a lot of people talk about extraterrestrials outside on the land, and then through TV, and I've never stepped foot there, so I don't know for sure. But I know a lot of people who have stayed the night. I know I've watched almost every show there is on Hinsdale because like I said, I have this weird draw to it. But everybody kind of always goes towards the D word with it. So what are your thoughts?
Now, you talk about extraterrestrial. Back in the 70s, in the 1970s, like 75 through 78, there was a flap in Western New York. And they were all over the place. They were just sightings all over the place. And there's still sightings. I live just outside of Buffalo, New York, and we're on the Lake Erie side of the Great Lakes. Now, on Lake Ontario, which is on the other side of us, they still have a lot of sightings over there. But during the we're an hour and a half drive from Hinsdale. So back in the 70s, there was a lot of activity out there. Even Clara Miller talks about the activity. And then one of the last owners of the house, the Mishniks, talked about huge silver sparkly orbs that were seen in the field across from the house. So whether they're extraterrestrial, whatever. And then if you really want to get abstract on it, like a guy by the name of Stan Gordon, he believes that there's a direct correlation between UFO and Bigfoot sightings. Could there also be a direct correlation between UFO sightings and paranormal activity? And I tend to believe, I have a sneaking suspicion that the energy that we see through UFO activity causes other stuff to go on. And that's something else that we have to always investigate. And I mean, everybody comes up and talks about demons, and I'll just come right out and say, I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in angels. I don't believe in heaven or hell or the spiritualist summerland. I believe in energy. I believe in the essence of personality that stays on in an energetic form and a vibratory form. And with what I've experienced in my life, it kind of makes sense that this could be extraterrestrial energy that sparks what's going on. It could be a direct, reason for it. It could be a byproduct of it. There's so many, and I think that's what keeps this field so interesting is the fact that we don't know for sure, but we have a lot of different theories. What bothers me is when people don't accept the different theories out there. I accept everybody's theory, whatever, if they want to see, they want a UFO that's got rivets and metal plates. Listen, I remember back in the late 60s, early 70s when they had the huge UFO blonde-haired Nordic men in black wandering around. I remember all that stuff and how everything has changed since then. If you want to believe in that, that's fine. It's what you believe in. I'll accept it because, every part of the puzzle may not be the correct piece that will fit in that slot, but it may be a piece that you got to keep around there so that when you find that correct piece, you can actually add that in there. That's extra information that may help you somewhere along the line. I tell people, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, people. Listen, sometimes you think to yourself, take a look at these geniuses out there. Take a look at these geniuses. They may not be normal to what we would consider normalcy, but boy, I'll tell you what, they know their stuff, they understand it, and to them, they may see it in a different way that makes perfect sense, and they can bring it out in that way. So I don't poo-poo just about anything. The only thing it
really is just the best part about it.
And you will see me every so often put my tinfoil hat on. That's just a precaution once in a while. But that's only because I can.
I love it. Send me a picture. I'll put one on too.
No, you got great hair. Don't do that. Don't mess up your hair.
Well, I hope I get to visit Hinsdale one day. I'm sure I will at some point. But
I hope you do. I hope you do. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, well, I've interviewed Dan a few times, and I just got to meet him in Gettysburg, which was amazing. But I asked him if I could spend the night by myself, and he said, yeah, but I think that I might be getting into a little too much doing so.
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I'll be totally honest with you. I just met a girl just before the charity event. She had spent the night by herself. And she goes, it was pretty quiet. And I've spent the night there a few times, and it's always been quiet for me. It's just, it was funny this last time, she had forgotten to turn off her REM pod. So we're all crashed in the living room. And I was up there with Deacon James and Anito, who's a great guy. And we were talking, and we talked about till about 4 a.m. until we couldn't talk no more. We fell asleep, and by 5:30, something came close to that REM pod, and it hit hard. I mean, it went up, and I jumped. I was like, just go away, just leave, go away, leave me alone. Let us sleep till 7. Just leave it. Just go away. But that's the way I think of things, and a lot of times you got to remember there's so many different types of people out there that when they pass, they don't change that often. They don't change that big. And I mean, I believe there's addictive spirits and parasitical spirits out there and good, people that are good and caring and, and there's essences of personalities that are just downright nasty. So, and many times we bring these under the natural laws, we talk about like attracts like. So we may be attracting this stuff and not even realizing it. And, sometimes they're going to act up. You get a parasitical that wants to scare you so it can go and get that vibratory energy off of you, fear or hatred or whatever it needs. It's going to do whatever it wants to do in order to go and achieve that, get that high. And, with me, it's like, go away. We had Zozo come through. As a matter of fact, that night on one of the Ouija boards. Yeah. And, if it had just been me with a couple people that I kind of, that I knew wouldn't freak, I would have poked the devil where I would have just kept poking it and poking it and poking it. Yeah. And it was kind of funny, but, there's people up there that were kind of freaky about it. And I said, we're just going to shut down now. But I asked it to spell my name, and it spelled it, but it had a couple extra letters here and there. And I said, well, that's a universal thing, number one. And number two, I said, spell your name, and it went XOXO. I said, I know definitely this isn't Love and Kisses, so what's your name? And it spelled Zozo. I went, that was great. And then the next week, I'm walking through the Detroit airport, and there's a shop called Zozo. I said, this is like too good to be true.
Oh, my gosh, that's funny. That's funny. Oh, so I was going to ask you two things.
Sure.
So I've never... And I don't know why. I think it's just the way the Ouija board has always been presented, is that it's bad, it's evil, it's dangerous. I've never touched one, Tim.
Well, if you come up, I'll show you how to do it properly. I teach a class, as a matter of fact, on Ouija boards, and there's an etiquette. And I won't lie to you, it's not a toy, because you're creating an artificial portal. For the two-way communication to come through. And, everything that you open has to be closed. It's basic seance 101. And when I was a kid, through the National Spiritual Association of Churches, we weren't really allowed to use any kind of tools. But we used a polished table with yes or no answers with a wine glass or a shot glass to go back and forth. So, I mean, I was taught, I don't know, I was a little kid back then, so that's as far back as I remember working with Ouija boards. But you have to give it a little respect, and you have to be careful with it. And I knew the late Ray Buckland, the guy that really kind of brought a lot of the organized Wiccan religion here to the U.S. He brought Gardarian religion, his Gardarian traditions over, and then he formed a sort of organization, and that kind of took off until he left it and he started a new tradition. But, I mean, he taught me a lot about it, too. He's like, there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of. But you have to use your common sense. And too many people in this life like to give themselves over, their free will over to whatever's going on. And that's what I teach my students, too. You got to watch what comes out of your mouth, because when you're speaking with somebody, doing a reading for somebody, you can create a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've got to be careful what you say. And that's why it's so important to really, practice and get used to it. Well, the same thing with when you work with any kind of tool of divination. Just because it says... if it says to you,
I use pendulums, I work with cards.
Yeah. It's nothing more. I use pendulums. I use alphabet wheels with pendulums. So to me, it's nothing more than a different form of talking board. But you can't get, inevitably, no matter what the board may say, no matter what the board may try to scare you, whatever, you've got free will. You've got common sense. If you don't like what's coming through, we're closing it right now. Everybody that's here, everybody goes back. I'm giving a count of 5. I am in control of all spiritual matters. In control. And don't tell me that you're going to stay, because you're not. That's the way it works. Right. And you've got to believe it 100%. And I do. And I've never had a problem with it. And when I have something that I have an area or a board or I'm at a location where I'm getting a lot of negative stuff, it's like, no. You know what? Go down the street, down to the bar, and go scare somebody in the men's room. Don't bother me, because I'll tell you right now, it's not going to happen. So, I'm in control. Yeah, and that's what it is. And I don't have a problem with it. And I've never had a problem with it. I've had the Ouija board swear at me. I had the Ouija board tell me all sorts of nasty stuff. You want to know a secret? Nothing happened. Nothing happened afterwards. I closed it. That was the end of it. And inevitably, when you work with anything negative, the one thing that you learn is that if you do have an essence of something that's negative, it will go and leave. If it can't break through your armor and it can't influence you, it goes to someone else, either, in the group, or, if it's really, really that bad, it'll just start going down a pecking order. So with me, it's like, no, you're not going to bother me. You know what? If you have a problem, it's not going to happen here. And you're not going to go and affect anybody that's within this circle. That's the way it is, because I'm not going to allow it. And I have yet to ever have a problem with that.
Yeah. So I have to ask then, have you ever been scared of anything that you've
listen, the pens are my favorite ghost hunting tool. Believe me. I've had plenty of scares. I don't like anything that jumps out at me. I don't like anything that, like, I was up at Old Fort Niagara. I was up in the old French castle by myself. I don't know, it was about 2:00 in the morning, and man, there were some footsteps. That doesn't really bother me, but the banging of a door does. That stuff is really disconcerting. I don't like that. I don't like when my name is called, because I'll hear that in my house every so often, something that calls my name. But, it's sort of like, it's more of a shock. And then I kind of just take a breath and think, oh, well, something's trying to get a hold of me. And it's like, if you're not clear, if you can't get the message through clear enough, then go away. And inevitably it does.
You know what's weird, Tim? When Eric and I first moved to Savannah, the first home we lived in had so much activity. Like, glasses were being moved. We caught shadow movement on camera that we couldn't debunk. We were getting EVPs. Things were being thrown. And someone with abilities, I will tell you, for the first time in my life, I couldn't read anything. And that was probably the scariest thing for me, because I couldn't connect with it. I couldn't understand who it was.
You can't connect with everything. That's the one thing, again, I always tell people, you know what, you're not Superman. You can't connect with everything. On the other hand, you can control you can control a situation just by the force of will. You can control it. And a lot of times, when you start realizing you get over that shock value, that shock factor, and you just say, big deal. And you do that, guess what? It starts to diminish as it goes along. And along the time, and again, you try to find out what's powering it. That's a big thing. But with me, I'm one of these people that ignores a lot of stuff. I have a man brain. I think it comes natural to men. You can talk to us, and sometimes it gets through. Most of the time, it doesn't.
Right.
I think that helps me in that matter, because I don't. I loop on a lot of stuff, but paranormal stuff, I never loop on, because of the fact I know that if you loop on it, thoughts are things become vibratory in nature, and then you get a like attracts like type of deal that will work, and it brings whatever it is back or to you or whatever. And I'm just one of those people that's like, nope, see ya, no. Guess what? This is my house, and I'm not a bargain person either. I'm not one of these people that go, well, if you stay in this part of the house, and I'll live in this part of the house. No, you know what? It's either we all live together as one happy family, and you don't act up. You can stay here so long as I don't see you, or if I don't feel you, if I don't, I don't get cold spots or whatever. You can stay here. I just don't want to know that you're here. And
right. Oh, I've done that.
I don't have a problem with it. And if it does, well, then you know what? We're gonna have a serious powwow where, you know what? I'm gonna bring some other mediums in here, and we're gonna do a spirit rescue circle. And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna shake your reality up. And that's the way it works.
Spirit saved me once. I let a spirit stay in my old home, and he actually saved me from dying of smoke inhalation.
But this is why you don't get rid of. See, this is what kills me. Everybody is like, "Oh my God, Tim, we have got to get rid of this spirit." Well, why are you getting rid of the spirit? What has it done? Well, I see it like I see a shadow move. So what? I get shadows in my house all the time. Well, sometimes I get change that moves around, or I get things appear and disappear. I said, anything important disappear? No. Well, why are you worried about it? Why are you worried about it? Well, I get a cold, weird feeling in the basement. Listen, my house, I get a cold, weird feeling in my basement. I have 7 foot lockers full of haunted objects underneath the stairs. So it's like, I get it all the time. Why do you want to get rid of it? If it is benign, chances are it won't harm you. It won't go, and it isn't going out of its way to scare you. It's just there. And yours is a classic example of why you don't get rid of it. Every spirit. You just don't, because, listen, if you get an incubus case or succubus case that's coming in, you get something that's negative coming in, you're getting, in temporal and full possession attempts, you're going in from the infestation, you're getting heavy infestation going into an oppressive situation. That's totally different. But if it's just benign, I have people like, I can't stand this anymore. Well, why can't you stand it? Let me tell you something, pal. You've got more EMF coming off of like some of these really old lamp, sockets that you're lighting the house with than this negative or your so-called negative spirit is projecting. 9 out of 10 times, it's natural and organic in nature. Change these things, change the light sockets, change some of the wall sockets, and you might find that there's a difference going on there. You'll still see the same stuff, but guess what? It's not going to be as oppressive.
Right. So, Tim, we have so many questions from people in chat.
Great.
And I want to get to a few of them too before we have to go. But just so everyone knows, if you don't get your question asked tonight, or we run out of time with Tim, he will be on Paranormal Buzz Radio on Wednesday with Kelly, so you can tune in for that as well.
They pay me well to come in here. That's what it is. I get no pay for this, but I just want to hang out with cool people. That's all there is to it.
Yes. Okay, Darren Buss asked, if you had a chance to investigate a seminary or the Vatican, would you?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason for it is the fact is it's so steeped in history, and the vibes in that place they've got to be crazy. It's got to be crazy. I've done churches. I've done former churches. And the vibe when I walk in there, it's just like, wow. If you're not careful, you can get overwhelmed with it. But we did something at a matter of fact, a relative of Dan Kless has he's renting a former church, and it's like an artisan crafts, kind of co-op. And we went in there, and the vibes were just insane there. So I can't even imagine what the Vatican would be. I would love it. I would absolutely love it.
There's a church here in Savannah at St. John the Baptist Cathedral, and it's unlike any church I've ever seen. But every time I go in there, and I'm not that religious, I'm more spiritual, but it doesn't matter. Every time I go in there, I just feel so good. like so
exactly.
Good.
And always remember one thing. Always remember one thing. When a lot of people come up to me and start talking religion, I always look at them and say, listen, religion was something that was created by man, and it becomes a self-fulfilling entity. It was probably started really for the best reasons in the beginning, and then towards the end, it was a control thing, keep itself going. But spirituality is a true covenant in your belief system that is between you and your deity, you and your God, and it doesn't matter. So I would rather have a room full of spiritual people rather than a room full of religious people.
Same. All right, Wolf Hawkeye wants to know, in the paranormal investigative field, if there was one thing you could change, what would it be and why?
I would change the fact that everybody jumps automatically to something that's like totally negative rather than really sitting down and trying to figure it out. That is something that has always been a pet peeve of mine. And again, I mean, it's, I get a lot of calls. Well, I had this group in here and they said that it's really negative and this and that. And it's like, okay, and you go down there and it's like very calm. The other thing that I would kind of like love to see is the fact that teams become territorial, and they get a location that is hot. It's a hotbed, but they're and let's say it's a residential, and it's a hotbed. Well, they don't go and they don't share this location with the proper people. They keep it to themselves because they're getting EVPs, they're getting reactions, and they're getting it becomes a quote unquote fantasy haunted house rather than the real deal, and it just keeps going, and the one thing that you find out with long-term haunted locations is the fact that, especially ones that become public, they either start to diminish a little bit or they start to amp up because people are feeding into the energy. Again, everything is energetic. Yeah. We're energetic beings. So you go to a location to investigate, you're leaving a little bit of yourself behind when you go in and when you leave. So now you can be part of the problem rather than, part of the solution. And to me, I have no problems with like public places that are open, and I think it's a great idea, and I really do. I like it because most of the places have paranormal investigations that benefit the location to keep it historically viable and open, which means that it puts a new roof on the place, or they keep the update, they keep it. The upkeep is done. I just think that too many people. Yeah, I just think that too many people on residentials, they just hold on to it, and because it's active rather than trying to solve it.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Actually, I've seen it firsthand. Darren, also, I guess this will be last question, but again, Tim will be back on Wednesday with Kelly, guys, so you can ask more questions then. But Darren wanted to know what the holy grail of the paranormal is to you, evidence or personality?
The holy grail is anytime I see a full apparition like that one at Hinsdale. I have seen in all the years that I've done this, that's just something that just drives me up the wall. People are like, oh, I see this stuff all the time. And I'm thinking, well, I've been doing this for, a long, long time. And I can count on one hand all the times I've actually seen either a full apparition or like a 3/4 apparition. And that to me is a true abnormality. And I believe that that's something that, when I see it, it just blows my mind, and I'm thankful, and I feel blessed for actually having that entity, that essence of personality, allow me to see them in whatever form, whether it's a spectral form, whether it's a physical form, however it presents itself. I think it's really something that's great. And that to me is the holy grail. That, I've been pushed, shoved, pinched, scratched. I've had doors shut. I've had all sorts of neat stuff happen to me. And that's cool. But to see something like that is just like blows my mind. I'm here, baby.
No. What happened? It went, dit, 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 and then just like completely cut out. So weird.
I'd say that's my energy, but I had Chinese for dinner, so I don't think so. It's not me.
I'm so sorry, Tim. I was like,
that's all right.
Tim was in the middle of the best answer ever. What's going on?
Oh, come on now. You can always ask me back, and I'll come on.
Oh, thank you. But no, that everyone in chat agrees. That was a really, really great answer. And I want to ask Shay's question, too. Shay wants to know if you believe in debunking, which I think you're going to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We're truth seekers. Let's face it. Do you want to propagate a falsehood just because it sounds cool, it makes you look cool, or do you want to be a truth seeker? I would rather go and, have something debunked, and I can say, well, hey, I did that. That's cool. We learned something, rather than propagate something that's wrong. So yeah, we should be truth seekers. So debunking is number one.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and
just got to
be a bummer because you want it to be paranormal so bad, and you want to have that experience and that story to tell, but you have to do it. You just do.
Oh my God, Jed! You know how many people send me stomach growls, or somebody passing wind in a. I get that all the time. Orbs,
the entities growling at you.
Yeah. So you know what? Here's the way it is. But the problem is there's too many people that are combative out there. So they want to go and they want to. This sucks. You don't know what you're talking about. No, there's a kinder, more gentler way of doing it, and it's whatever. It's like I don't understand it. I'm not sure. What you sent me was interesting, but here's an address. Maybe they can tear it apart and figure it out a little bit better than what I can, and that's what I do. And that's again because I'm working with WavePad and whatever my little laptop will allow me. And it's limited to tear this stuff apart. So. I mean, and the other thing is I have stuff already printed up that I send to people. It's like, well, this is the way a digital phone or a digital camera works. This is how these are anomalies that a cell phone will produce. So, it's all part of it. You just kind of, I don't want to say it's not, but on the other hand, I'm not going to say, oh my God, this is incredible.
Right, and you can't. So, one last question, Tim. I have told her wants to know your suggestion or advice on how to tell. Well, I don't want to say real psychic versus fake psychic because, well, I mean, answer it that way, I guess.
Yeah. As an instructor and as someone who grew up in the last age of frauds, the great age of spiritualist medium frauds, cold reading is real easy. Mm-hmm. So, and cold reading is watching eye movements, watching hand movements, saying buzzwords in order to get a response. asking too many questions. A lot of times I'll go like this: who is this person? Don't tell me. That's the way I go. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I'm going to just give it to you. And if people can take it, fine. If people don't take it, fine. People who get upset that you're not, that you're not, that you're not getting it. Psychics that get upset over that, they're not really good, because they're looking to feed ego. I just go and tell them. I come right out and tell them, listen, I'm an author. I can make up better stuff than what I'm telling you. I mean, right. That's the way. That's the way I feel. And I'm not going to lie to you. This is what I'm getting. If you can take it, and this is where the monetary thing comes in. You pay your money. You don't like what I say, I'll give it back. That's all.
Absolutely.
Give it back. Please go someplace else. No problem.
I mean, you can't ask for much more than that, right? I mean,
Exactly.
Then you get a
and when I do gallery work, I go and I throw candy at people. And the reason I always tell them right up front, listen, if I suck as a reader, you guys got candy, so you're in a win-win situation.
There you go. You could throw Jolly Ranchers at my head anytime. Well, Tim, I'm so sad that our time's up already, but you will be back on Wednesday with Kelly. I want
absolutely
to thank everyone in the chat: Darren, Shay, Matt, Exie, Wolf, I have the Beholder, and then anybody who will listen to this later recorded. Thank you so much. Tim, tell them. I know you've done so many TV shows. You wrote books we didn't even get to talk about. Can you tell everybody how they can find you, see your work, buy a book, get a reading, go to a class that you're hosting?
Easiest way is go right to my website, www.timothytshaw.com, and I have schedules on there, and I've got some samples of my classes that I teach, and that's usually the easiest way. I am on Facebook, of course, because you have to be nowadays, and that's a. You can usually message me through there too. Calling me is like almost impossible. I almost never answer my phone, so that's the way it works. I almost never. But I mean, you can, if you message me, within a week I usually get back to you.
Awesome. So you guys go visit his website, find him on Facebook, check out all the local Paracons. You never know when he might show up. And just go knock on his door. I work for food. So if somebody invites me to a Paracon and they promise me a decent meal, I might be there. Perfect. Well, I will take note of that for future reference.
I think Eric even bought me. Yeah, Eric bought me breakfast one time. So yeah, we're
Eric
good.
Bought you breakfast, huh? Oh well, then he's in your good graces.
Yes, he is.
He's laughing. He can hear you.
I love that guy. He's great.
Me too. I think he's all right.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Again, it was my absolute pleasure having you on. I hope that we get the chance to talk again. I still have so many things that I'd like to pick your brain on, and no problem. I'll be listening on Wednesday with Kelly.
Anytime you want me back on, I'd come on.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you so much.
You have a good evening now.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Have a